Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a Cloudy Sheep and we are playing Fate of the World. It is now 2050, so I did promise you to take a little tour of the world and see where we got over the last 30 years. As you might remember, we started out the game in 2020, so a couple of things have changed over the last, pretty much a generation. So let's briefly look at that. So firstly, to population, emissions, GDP. So let's look at these main items. So population, as you can see, has grown up quite a little bit. So this is where we started, from about 7 billion people to a little bit more than 8. So 8.4 actually. So yeah, pretty much an increase. You can see it's somewhat even throughout the regions. In particular, India over here has increased a little bit, but not that much, as you can see. And that, of course, is due to our one-child policy, which we had run in India for quite a while. On the other hand, you can see China somewhat stabilizing, the Middle East is increasing, and I think Latin America is also... No, who is the other one? Yeah, Southern Africa. So from 700 million to nearly a billion, quite an increase, but I wouldn't say this is too drastic. On the other hand, the big emissions question. So where do we stand? If you remember well, we started out at 54,000 emissions. I think it's over here maybe then. No, well. So it was about 54,000 megatons CO2. And we're now at 57? So yeah, it's somewhat stable. You can see it's not developing too drastically. It's more or less alright. And if we look at the economy, we see that it did grow, substantially, specifically for some of the developing regions. So down here, I think this is the Middle East. Come on, tooltip. Tooltip. There. Oh no, okay, this is China. China has grown very significantly. Europe has somewhat grown. The US did have a little bit of a bump over here, as you can see. It did suffer from our taxation, but it has recovered somewhat from that and is now at least stable, so roughly where it began. On the other hand, you can see India increasing, but still being very, very small, especially compared to its population. Middle East is also growing very quickly, so that is nice to see, although there are problems associated with that, and we'll have to see about that. You can also have a brief look at the mean HDI, so the Human Development Index, which is going up steadily, which I like to see. Now, how does it look like? We are at much higher emissions targets. I mean, this is just the annual emissions, right? So the problem with this is, of course, that it does depend on the temperature, that the temperature does depend on the cumulative emissions. And as you can see over here, that just goes up and up and up, because if we're adding to this year by year, some 50,000 tons, of course it's going to rise incredibly, and that basically means that this is not really the true target, curve over here. This is really should be exponentially increasing. You can see maybe over here the little kink, which is when we started our geoengineering program. So I think that's very nice, because otherwise the trend would have been like that, and now it's a little bit flatter, so the 3% target might just be out of reach, and that would be good, because that would drop down. But yeah, cumulative emissions still a problem, still a large problem actually. Also, the oil production, as you can see, is going up and up and up, which also means, of course, that the reserves are going down and down and down. And that is a little bit of a problem. You can see South Africa basically has dropped out of oil production. The Middle East did take up that slack, as did North America and Latin America, but yeah, reserves are getting lower, and that of course is one of the big problems. Let's also briefly look at gas. Yeah, also increasing. I think coal use should see a decline. Yeah, we spent a lot of effort to convince China to drop out of coal, and similarly with other countries, so it's nice to see that going down, but yeah. Right, so where do we stand today? Nearly at the same emissions. So what has changed then? If you remember well, one of the biggest emitters in 2020, so a generation ago, was China. Now China if we look over here, has still pretty much the same level of emissions as they had right at the beginning of the game. So it's more or less flat. It has increased in the meantime, but then went down. You can see that there is a shift though from what used to be. Come on. I hate it when it doesn't show you the tooltip. So when while it used to be mainly energy and somewhat industry, the usage for energy has declined a little bit, but the industry did pick up these emissions. So what effectively happened over here is that as we phased out coal in the energy generation, energy has become a little bit more expensive, and that incentivized the industry to directly use a little bit more coal. So yeah, not much of a change in China overall, although the relative distribution over here has changed a little bit. I think we should also keep an eye on agriculture because that has remained somewhat flat, but all in all it seems to be fine. So with the top emitter not having changed much, what has changed? Now the two next emitters, you know, China 12,000, were North America and Europe, both of which were about 8,000, 7,000 megatons. So significantly below China, but combined at least they were on top of that. So let's have a look over here. You can see that already over there. The total emissions went down drastically over here. So from 8,000 tons per year, we are 8,000 million tons per year. So billion tons, I guess we could say. So from 8 to 3.6, that is a massive decrease. You can see that over here. So we started out very, very high. We are now somewhat low. We are very, very low indeed, actually. So this has dropped to one of the lowest emitting regions in the world. I think it's definitively in the lowest third part of the emitters. There were a couple of wildfire issues, but these were only temporary bumps. Of course, that was still an issue because it did produce intermediate emissions that are now stuck in the atmosphere, and we do need to deal with that. But you can see, all in all, a very nice change, and the tooltip has gone away again. But one of the most important bit is that the road usage, or that the road investments that we did into the infrastructure did decrease the use of the of transport emissions quite drastically, actually. So I think you should see that over here. Yeah, it was about 2 million tons per year. Now it's about, I don't know, it's about a quarter of this, so less than a million emissions. So that's very nice to see, I think. So North America has in this sense been really a success story, and the same is actually true for Europe. So if we look at the annual emissions over here, it did start out at about 7. It's now at about a little bit more than 4, so not quite as drastically a reduction as in North America, but also here the transport, you can see that dropping down drastically. Energy is becoming much less reliant on emitting things. The industry is somewhat identical, and agriculture has dropped a little bit. Same here, a little bit of forestry, intermediate troubles, which we did get rid of though by today. So these are the success stories. But we also heard that, you know, the overall emissions haven't changed. So who are the new top emitters? Now, actually the second highest emitter now is the Middle East, and we should probably see that over here in the emissions. So whereas it started out the game really low at about 4,000 tons, it's now double these emissions. And most of that is from the energy sector. So yeah, there's a bit of an issue here. We do need to deal with this in some fashion, and we'll have to talk about that a little bit later on. Somewhat similarly is the situation in India, our perpetual worry child. So again, it started out the game at I think a little bit about over 3,000. So I noted it down, I think at 3,000. So rounded it was there. Now it's much higher, and as you can see, most of these emissions come from the energy sector, with a lower degree of emissions coming from the industry. So this really is actually the biggest change. So these North America, Europe having invested in the energy efficiency quite a lot. India, Middle East, just by growth of their economies, and in particular the growth of their industry, I think. Is there any way for us to see that in GDP? Can we get an overview of this? we should be industry. So yeah, the industry capital index should be a good indication of that. So you can see the Indian economy has grown from a very low industrialized to a somewhat industrial place, even though it still has a very low GDP per capita, so about $7,000 per year. I think North America is way in excess of 50,000, so yeah, there we go. Another big emitter has been South Africa now. It's also increased from about 2,000 tons to more than to about 5,000 tons, so also a very significant increase. But yeah, there's that. Most of the other countries have stayed somewhat similar. There's not much change going on. A little bit of you know, dropping down by 1,000 tons or up. But yeah, so that means for the next part of the game, so for the next sort of generation or so, we should really focus on India, Middle East and Southern Africa. And maybe to a little bit lower extent on South Asia, because you two have increased your emissions, I think, by at least a little bit. Yeah, so it used to be about 3,000, so there is a change. We did get, or we addressed the forest change, I think, but yeah. India, Southern Africa, Southeast Asia are really the targets for the next generation, and of course China remains very, very high on our priority. Other than that, everything seems to be fine. I made a list of the top 5 emitting categories, and that is indeed still the Chinese industry, the Indian energy usage, the Chinese energy usage, the North American energy usage, sorry, the Middle Eastern energy usage, and the South African energy usage. So these items remain high. Now, if you remember well, something that we did use in Europe and North America were cards like these. So more regulations on business and household carbon regulations or industrial carbon regulations. And those were really, really effective in reducing the energy need. If you look over here, we should see that the energy production over here should drastically go down as the industry and the commerce and residential sectors are requiring less and less energy. There is an issue. We can't use these cards in India. These cards are only available, they were projects, as you can see they are not over here. These cards are only available if you have a GDP in excess of $12,000 per year, per person. So, that's not possible in India, that's not possible in Southern Africa. The GDP in both of these places is about at $6,000, so about half of that. It will be possible, I think, in the Middle East. And in Southeast Asia we are at least not that far away from that. So I think a little bit of the strategy will need to involve around getting Southern Africa and India, and especially Southeast Asia, up to speed, and increasing the size of their economy somewhat. Right, that being said, let's go to China. Let's have a look at their news. So 4th generation nuclear has been researched, and they do like that we are defending their coasts and all of that against climate change inducents. Industry is using less and less energy, which is a very, very good thing for us. Some topsoil trouble, some water troubles. Of course, our geoengineering efforts are leading to low agricultural performance, but it's not incredibly bad, so everything is somewhat okay. No drought, and the forestry is actually changing in a nice fashion. So in fact, we are now increasing the forestry. So what I would like to do then is to go to projects over here and do a 4th generation nuclear conversion incentive. So we are committing to nuclear, and we should see that the energy usage over here really switches over to uranium, away from oil, away from coal, to a point where, can we actually see the uranium part of this? Yes, so you can see the coal dropping out of this. You can see uranium really being a much stronger force over here. But we do need to get rid of the reliance on oil because these resources are running out. And I hope that by using 4th generation nuclear incentives, we can maybe go along a little bit longer. I would also like to do several other things over here, but I don't think we have necessarily the cards available to do so. So I think industry and carbon regs are strictly required. Commit to nuclear is still a very strong choice. Fourth generation nuclear incentives are very good to supplement that. There's not much we can do to increase the anything that we need over here? No. There's not much that we can do to increase the economics of the agricultural sector. I think we only could use pretty much biochar. How's your water stress level? It is being felt now, so all in all I think we should maybe think about getting a new slot in China to really tackle the issues, the persistently high things over here. Let's look at Europe. Everything seems to be going alright. These things are working, the campaign is working, tech is alright. Yes, there's a little bit less performance due to geoengineering. Fourth generation incentives is replacing or is increasing the uranium efficiency, so that also is very good to see. So you know what? That in fact I think means we don't really need to do much in Europe. There are no refugees, water stress level is really low, forestry change is a little bit high, so I don't like to see that. Do we want to maybe switch out of declined coal power for now, for one turn, and maybe get into protect the land and soil? I think that would be good. North America? Yes, biofuels, researched, the business regs are working, the industrial regs are working, tech is booming, everything is really going well. Old nuclear reactors are replaced by newer technology. However, we do see a little bit of storm severity, so that's not exactly great, but I don't think there's anything... No, we can actually use the improved storm defenses, so you know what, let's do that immediately. Right, very lovely. Good. Let's have a look at India. India, all of this is probably red. Yes. So water stress is bad. Yeah. Job sharing initiatives makes progress, so your unemployment is dropping. That's good to see. Yes, your agriculture is suffering a little bit. Sick environment, fueling cancer rise. That is also not very great. So yeah, we do need to deal with you a little bit better. I think what we want to do is increase your economic capacity, so we need to do a couple of things for that. I think the most important is actually the higher education program, and maybe at some point we want to grow the commerce sector. I still want to decline the use of coal power, and I still want to use eco-awareness so that we are pushing out of materialist at least into something more balanced, because I think that would be good. Likewise, let's go to Southern Africa. Yours is somewhat stable, that I like to see. Dangerous deforestation averted, that's good to see. Less sunshine, but all in all you seem to be fine. So there's nothing in particular that is extremely bad. Your forest change is still bad though. So what I would like to do over here is also use the higher education program. And I actually think that we want very soon to probably switch into cap and trade regime, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But for now, we don't have any storm defenses over here. But for now, you know what? Let's use the protect land thing over here as well, because I think that will be a good change. Middle East, still the region where we do want to get everything stable and nice, just because we need this area for the expanded oil production. Since more storms are coming in, let's increase the storm defenses over here, and let's actually switch over to here and see what we could do in terms of regulations, because again over here that works because basically the economy is large enough at a GDP of above 14,000. So we'll drop out of this higher education program and actually have a look at what the energy usage is for. And that is mostly on commerce and residential. So industry, you can see about using 6,000 terawatt hours. Commerce and residential areas over here are using about 9,000. So yeah, That's a little bit more important. So I think what we're going to do is take the business and household carbon regs and just reduce your reliance on energy a little bit. That's very good to see. Let's briefly take a look at Japan. Everything seems to be alright over here. Austerity protests, storms are not that good. So let's see whether we can do anything about storms. I don't think we need to. I mean, the adaptation is nice, but it's not a one-time project, so it's not improving the exact defenses. It's more of an ongoing effort to tackle these issues. I like that you're still doing energy research and robotics. I think it's appropriate that you still deploy sulfates so that you're saving the climate a little bit. Oceania also acquired the ability to do that, so I think that's very nice to see. Yeah, so you know what? Let's go ahead and deploy sulfates over here as well. I'm aware that this is not maybe the best way to tackle climate change in the long term, but you know, it buys us time, and that is very important. Over here, these regulations are not that important because the emissions are very low here anyway, so we don't really need to deal with this. However, I would like you to protect your land and soil a little bit better, if at all possible. Oh, we also have the big refugees, right? The big refugee influx, yeah. So we do need to deal with this a little bit. The unemployment is alright, so I don't think we need the job sharing initiative. 55,000. What's your GDP per capita? No, it's higher than that. So you're restrained. You're content. So I don't think you need the job sharing initiative right now. Integration program is working well. So yeah, I think I'm happy with this situation. We dealt with North America, Europe, Japan, Oceania, China, Middle East, India, Northern and Southern Africa. Let's have a look at in Latin America, one of the very stable countries in terms of emissions. So I think it's more or less flat, yeah. But the big forestry things have become more shifted to other areas, so we need to keep that in mind. Still, they are very unstable, and that we can't afford, so we will provide security advice to them. And can we still do this? I thought that would have run its course. So how's your water stress level? It's fine, and your forestry still is an issue, so you know what, we will still continue to do this. Ooh, you could also use the household regs though. So what are you using your electricity for? Yeah, here it's a bit more mixed. So its commerce industry is somewhat on the same level. So I think we actually... Yeah, you know what, let's do the industrial carbon regs because it's a little bit cheaper and I'm a little bit worried about the money. Southeast Asia then. Oh, very good news apparently. Eco campaign in full swing, peace reigns, tech advances, our defenses are working, but there's a higher chance of storms, so let's build better defenses. I think higher education and eco-awareness to me seem very reasonable choices. Good, that does leave us at a little bit of money, and I think that means that we can probably buy another slot over here in China, which is again still remains one of the biggest emitters, so it's definitely something that we do need to deal with. I think probably the best thing might be business and household carbon regs. We could also, of course, improve their drought defenses, although I didn't think we received any. Yeah, but water troubles. So, shall we deal with the water stress? I think that might be good. So yeah, let's make a water management program. That does leave us with some money, not enough to buy a slot and a cart, but I think we might want to replace an inexpensive one with a more expensive one. So over here maybe let's actually use this one instead. Anything else that is particularly cheap where we might want to pick something a little bit more expensive? Could always replace one of the eco-awareness campaigns. Educational environment is extremely important over here, of course. Russia, I think you're doing fine. North America, these items are extremely important, so I don't want to replicate there too much. All of that is alright. Oceania. The adaptation over here. Heat and droughts. Are you at... No, you don't necessarily need this, so let's see what else we could buy. Anything that is affordable. Tobin tax, no. Yeah, you know what, let's do job sharing. I mean, it's not actually more expensive, but still, it's alright. Middle East. Yeah, no, I think it's fine. Means we have a little bit too much money, but all in all it seems to be an alright choice. So, let's see how that works out. Ooh, temperature expectations are dropping, so that is fantastic to see. So there's barely any change in the global temperature now. Not because we are not emitting. You can see that our the total emissions actually rose substantially, but because we are deploying geoengineering. There's only a certain point to which we can do that. At some point disasters will happen, and that's not very nice. Oh, by the way, there was a very important bit of news that I just clicked away, and that is the gas production is peaking, so we need to take care of that as well. On the other hand, there is a super tensile materials breakthrough, so scientists in North America have announced the development of super tensile materials, enabling many kinds of advanced constructions, increasing economic capacity, and the expansion of tidal power generators. So that's very good to see. Let's have a look at the annual emissions over here. North America's emissions have increased substantially, that's not good to see. Russia's by 66%. We'll have to have a look what's going on over there. But everything else seems to be alright. People don't actively hate us in anywhere. Indeed, Japan and Oceania do seem to love us pretty well, so that I appreciate, because that probably means we can tax them a little bit more, and that is good. Right, let's briefly have a look at the emissions in North America to see what was going on there last turn. Yeah, forestry, I thought so. So probably it's something about wildfires. Nope, not wildfires, but agricultural expansion. And then Russia. Yeah, forestry. Forestry. Yeah, so big wildfires in both of these regions. So we'll have to think about introducing more defenses over there against this sort of thing, or at least taking more care of their forests, basically. But other than that, I think we are fine. We do need to be very careful with this forcing over here, because if these things develop too wide a gap, there's a big issue. And of course, we do need to deal with this gas production over here falling. So, or at least falling somewhat. Yeah, so let's have a look at North America, the Middle East, and Russia. Oh yeah, China is falling down here. Right, that being said, I think this is a very nice place to put in a cut. So thank you very much for watching. See you again next time. Bye bye.